Dostoevsky wrote the following in his book Karamazov, or The Brothers Karamazov. The awful thing is that beauty is mysterious as well as terrible. God and the devil are fighting there, and the battlefield is the heart of man. End quote. Thus, what makes something beautiful when it is beyond the moral landscape, let's say? We can find this answer in his quote, let's say, with the use of Nietzsche in philosophy, in the dynamic of the God and the devil, the immaterial and the material, the mysterious and the terrible, and that man's heart exists as the battlefield between these two forces so that he may synthesize them to create a hybrid force of authenticity, which has the ability to produce beauty by merging the powers of the will within to form a balance and integration of powers through the body. Nietzsche would probably agree with Dostoevsky's understanding of beauty, but instead would offer a method to how one can become beautiful or become able to produce beauty. Because the hard bargain lies in the fact that you cannot have one without the other. In the sense of his original quote, he sees beauty as both terrible and mysterious, and not only are mergence or symbiosis, let's say, of the two can truly create a beauty that man's heart can affirm proudly. That it is a never-ending battle between these two forces, and that man has to accept a win through synthesis, which reaffirms Nietzsche's point when he, in one of his quotes, says something along the lines of that the good cannot arise from man unless he has claws for cruelty, that instead he must have the capabilities and not precisely the intent, because Nietzsche makes addition to Dostoevsky's point in a way of understanding. He applies the synthesis of God and the devil in a sense, that beauty is only that which has complete ability, and says the following, quote, "When power becomes gracious and descends into the visible, such descent I call beauty." Here, beauty arises when the will to power becomes understood within oneself, and you can think of the quote from ancient Greek philosophy, "Know thyself," through the physical, visible body, and that the will within grounds itself into its own skin to become able, capable, and adaptive to the physical world and to the adaptations that are to come for the future that man has to adapt to and all of this. So when done so, man becomes gracious in his own physiology and action because he has made himself known unto himself and to others around him and is able to express his will in complete accordance with his being that has become known to himself. This is the synthesis of Dostoevsky's vision of the mysterious and the terrible nature of beauty, let's say, to formulate true beauty and authenticity, and not claiming it as an awful picture or as a problem of opposites, as you may see it within his Christian perspective or worldview. Nietzsche instead offers a conclusion through hybrid formula, that becoming capable of producing beauty in its totality is by becoming physically gracious in power so that he is both capable of the mysterious and the terrible, and to preferably initiate the two forms into what is necessary for holistic creative action, to coagulate the god of mystery and the devil of the terrible, whatever you want to call it, becoming a creative hybrid of opposites, because the creative man being the mysterious and gracious who conquers the terrible devil of physical strain of suffering, overcoming pain to instead treat it with graciousness due to his ability to see over it without hesitation. Thus the creative beauty can emerge when the physiology finds normalcy in strife and suffering, and that its sufferings do not wage war against action. This is why Nietzsche claims in a quote, "Whenever the will to power falls off in any way, there will also be physiological decline, decadence, as he calls it. And when the most masculine virtues and drives have been chopped off the head of decadence, he will necessarily turn into a god of the physiologically retrograde, the weak." End quote. So we can see that it is necessary then to confront the physiological body of oneself, to retain high charged will through fitness, diet and nutrition and things of this basic nature. These are the basics to maintaining one's course towards the creation of beauty, or at least to becoming capable of such abilities in oneself or in any possible activity. Thus, maintaining one's connection to the physical reality is of necessity and of necessary importance, so that one does not lose oneself within the fantasy of anything that is anti-material, anti-reality, anti-instinct, anti-nature, or pro-digital in replacement, pro-ideology, and pro-consumption, which lends a hand to the obvious degeneracy of your own centralized physical experience, which needs to be understood and lived so that one does not become a neurotic or illusioned, within one's own mind by rationalizations which avoid life. So through mythology we can find a kind of character, or we can find a kind of archetype, let's say, of the rural god of Pan, who signifies the meaning of the word all in Greek. Thus becoming a symbol, Pan becoming a symbol and personification of nature and the universe, the all, the everything, the entirety, or the totality in all of this. We can come to see that Nietzsche's claim, which becomes interesting here, because Nietzsche's claim of the death of God, in some sense recalls for the rebirth of Pan, who never truly died, as it was C.G. Chesterton who claimed that the death of Pan was the advent of theology, which is very interesting here. And what he said was the following. It is said truly in a sense that Pan died because Christ was born. It is almost as true in another sense that men knew that Christ was born because Pan was already dead. A void was made by the vanishing world of the whole mythology of mankind, which would have asphyxiated like a vacuum if it had not been filled with theology." End quote. So this is where you could say theology replaces the vacuum left behind from the death of Pan, or mythology in totality, because mythology represented all of the different life-affirming mythos within Greek mythological poetry or Homeric poetry. So from a Nietzschean perspective, you could claim that this is when the body is completely rejected from life. The life-affirming mythos of pre-Socratic Greece, Homeric poetry, the Olympians, the Roman religions, etc., is replaced by theology, which rejects the body and instincts to create a psychologically, in all honesty, and mentally inappropriate way of living, which is to craft the future orientation of man in the years to come, which would be an out-of-body metaphysics, high religious cosmologies, and moral laws whereby the mind or soul is theologically, philosophically separated from the body, which then influences the moral structure. And this is obviously the criticism of Nietzsche against Christianity, or institutional Christianity, by seeing its effects played upon the institutions later on in the future of the religion, and is the fundamental basis to what theology is this rationalized, jargonized, contemplative method to try and understand religion outside of the body and outside of the instincts, in relation to a higher order that is more transcendental than what can be found when the soul and the body are initiated into one singular form. And of course, Pan was then used in a propagandic way by Christianity to condemn the old evil world, which is seen through the depictions of Satan and all of this. Thus what becomes evident here is that, in a sense, Nietzsche's definition of beauty can only become understood through the definition of Pan, of the all. Because that is what Pan means, where you've got like words like pandemic or pandemonium and all these types of words. That through one's physiology one must internalize all the powers that can be harvested from the instincts, be made capable in all possible directions, whereby the soul and the body are in touch with one another so that one can function within the world with graciousness and power that is not mentally neurotic and incoherent, so that one can properly hold oneself up in the world. So if you go back to Dostoevsky's point, the battleground of beauty does not last for infinity within the hearts of man, but can be realised through Nietzsche's point by understanding that a synthesis is necessary of the mysterious and the terrible, or of God and the devil. That one's will to power must fall into the visible and physical reality and of the body, so that there is a graciousness in self-actualized power and ability, and not just a person who lives afraid of their own body in a fantasy of mental delusion and in codependence with something like the internet as a replacement, which aids to obvious insight to how we should start living in confrontation to the bourgeois life of boring, postmodern comfort, and the neuroticism that has developed from it through a reliance on the internet and consumerism. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like, comment your thoughts down below. I'd like to know what you think about all of this and all these different ideas where I'm merging mythological, mythopoetic, mythos, whatever you want to call it, from Greek and pre-Socratic Greece. And I would like to hear what your thoughts are on it below. And I would also recommend you go over to my Odyssey channel, which will be a link in the description where you can subscribe on to over there. And if you want to donate to the channel, if you want to find and watch more exclusive videos, you can go over to my Patreon and donate or do whatever you want over there as well. So thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you in the next video.